Hi friends, today I will review the jlpt he行こう textbook, which was our main textbook in language school for about 4 months. There are 2 more textbooks in the series, which are called jlpt he 만나보, but we won't use them going forward, so I can't really speak on them. But yeah, if you remember, I wasn't really fond of this book when I first talked about it, but after using it for 4 months, I kind of got used to the things I didn't like so much, and it was actually kind of helpful. So let me explain you why. The textbook contains 55 grammar structures and 420 new words from the high N4 and low N3 level. It has exercises for reading, vocabulary use, grammar, listening, and some little discussion tasks. It's recommended for learners who finished the second Minano Nihongo or Genki textbook, which I would also agree on, because I feel like it's a good middle ground between the Genki 2 book and the N3 material, like the Try N3 book. The book starts with a short introduction in Japanese, then a table of contents, and the first chapter follows right away. The title page always comes with 2 questions for either discussion or writing, and then on the next page there's always a text that includes most of the new vocabulary words and grammar points, and the grammar points you will learn in the chapter are always bold. Then on the next page you have a short table with the new vocabulary from the text, a little task where you have to fill in the words inside the blank spaces, and a Q&A about the text. On the third page there's a very short explanation of the grammar points with 2 example sentences, and there's usually a double page for each chapter with new grammar points. Then you get 5 to 6 pages of practice exercises, which are mostly very easy. Also a check sheet to see if you have understood the vocabulary and some of the grammar points. And then you have a listening exercise with the same text you get on the first page of the chapter, but with gaps you have to fill in. And usually afterwards you have 1 or 2 sakobun tasks. So to write a text about the topic of the chapter with some of the grammar points, for example. So let's start with the strength. I feel like the short chapters were definitely one of the biggest strengths of the book, because it's very easy to go through and it doesn't feel like you have a lot of work, and it's very motivating to finish a chapter in a very short time, and it also doesn't feel too overwhelming. I also like that each chapter includes multiple prompts for essays. Sometimes they're very small, and then at the end of the chapter you get a bigger prompt, and I feel like compared to that a lot of textbooks usually lack those tasks, so I was very happy about that. Also, the topics and the texts are quite interesting in my opinion. There were topics like fast food, earthquakes, recycling activities like flea markets, and also the gender gap regarding jobs and household work. The grammar exercises are also varied, so sometimes you just have a few sentence parts you have to connect, and sometimes you have a little writing task where you have to either complete a sentence or write a full sentence yourself using the grammar point. I also like that it comes with a free answer sheet, and they even have like 1 or 2 sentences for the little writing tasks as an example. So you can see what they want you to write, which is always nice. Because I feel like in the Genki textbooks, if I remember correctly, there wasn't a suggestion when it comes to the writing tasks, which made it a bit harder because I used the Genki textbooks on my own back then, and I wasn't really sure if I wrote the correct things or not. I mean, now with ChatGPT it's a bit easier to see, or with like an italki teacher, if you are right or not, but if you don't have those resources or you just don't want to use them, it's at least a good starting point to have some orientation in the book itself. And now we're already coming to the weaknesses, and there are quite a few. The biggest weakness I feel like is that they use the same text for the listening exercise as they do for the reading exercise, because the chapters are quite short, as I said. So you can definitely go through them quite quickly, and it's not enough time to forget the text you read first. So when you do the listening exercise, you still know what the text is about and what you have to put into the brackets. So I don't really feel like there's a lot of skill you can develop when it comes to listening with the book, except for, just listening to the text without reading it. There are 2 speeds, so a slower speed where you can listen to the text and a faster speed, which is nice, but again, I would have liked if they would have chosen a completely different text or put in more effort to create something new. And then we come to the grammar explanation part, which was the thing I hated the most when I started the book, because there's no real explanation. There's sometimes just a word group saying what the grammar point point is supposed to say, but in Japanese there are a lot of grammar points that are similar and only have slightly different nuances. So I feel like it's not enough to just say like, yeah, it means something that's expected from you or something that's common sense. I felt like there was a lot of explanation missing. Also the layout was a bit confusing because everything is so squished together. So it was sometimes hard to see at the start where one grammar point ended and where the next one started. So I had to highlight a lot to make it clearer for myself. So I felt like the whole grammar part was kind of useless if you don't have a teacher that's explaining you the grammar point or another resource. So not the best book to study grammar with. Also, some vocabulary words were not translated that well into English. For example, yobina, which is the given name, is just translated to name. But there are a lot of different vocab words for name, and sometimes it's the full name, it's the first name, it's the last name. So I feel like they should have specified more what each word means. And sometimes, I think like 1 or 2 words, I looked up the word in the dictionary to get more clarification, and the translation the book put in their vocabulary list had a different nuance compared to what all the other dictionaries said. And also one thing, which is a minor weakness, but for the longer essay they didn't include an example in the answer sheet. And I feel like especially when you just finished Mina no Nihongo 2 or Genki 2, you're not that confident maybe with writing longer texts. So I feel like having an at least 3-4 sentence example would be nice to, just read it first and then try to do your own and use the example as a guideline. The book costs 2,200 yen, which is okay if you think about that one Genki book costs double the amount. But of course, the Jukyu he Ippo book is smaller and there's less inside, but they have a free answer sheet. So I feel like it kind of is the same word, but yeah, you have to decide for yourself if it's worth the money. So would I recommend the book? Even though it has a few weaknesses, I feel like the book is a good resource to bridge the gap between the higher beginner level and the lower intermediate level. And since the book is very short and all the chapters are very short, I feel like it's not that overwhelming compared to, again, using Try and 3 maybe, or the Tobia book, which is super thick. So it might be a good book to get the basic grammar points and basic intermediate vocabulary down. But then again, I would definitely recommend you to get another resource for grammar, for example, Bunpro or another grammar book maybe. Just something that you can reference for a real explanation for the grammar points. And also maybe try to look up a few more example sentences to see how it's used properly and what the nuance is, what are the differences to other grammar points. And if you do that, I feel like it could be a very good resource. So I would give it 3 out of 5 stars, since again it has a few weaknesses, but it's not the worst and it's better than I expected. So I'm still kind of glad we had the book because it was a good low pressure way to, for me, review a lot of the lower intermediate grammar points, because I studied them before in Germany, before I came to language school mostly. And since I feel like the book is not very popular, I would be interested to hear from you. Do you know the book? Have you ever used it? Would you like to use it? What do you think of the book in general? And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful, and also subscribe to see more about my experience in language school and my adventures in Japan. And I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye bye!